Hello, everybody. Having introduced many of the concepts which we will encounter time and time again over the progress of these courses through our reading of Trotsky's 1939 introduction and the associated questions, we will now pass to a brief review of the first parts of Roulet's Abridgment, covering three concepts, the one developing from the other: the commodity, money, and capital. Many people find Marx's initial presentation of the concept of the commodity to be difficult and obtuse. One important thing to keep in mind is the level of abstraction. Marx is not attempting here to provide an immediate basis for understanding price fluctuations, commercial crisis, or other day-to-day phenomena of capitalist production. Rather, he is seeking to clarify what differentiates labor as a social practice in the capitalist mode of production from labor as a social practice in other modes of production. Labor in capitalist production is commodity-producing labor, and therefore, understanding the specific mode of organization of labor which characterizes capitalist production begins with an understanding of the commodity as a social phenomenon. The commodity, the basic cellular form of social wealth in the capitalist mode of production, has two aspects: use value and exchange value. First, its use value. Its use value is its utility, its capacity to satisfy human wants of some kind or another. Use values in general are trans-historical, although specific human wants, of course, are not. As Marx puts it, they constitute the substance of all wealth, whatever may be the social form of that wealth. However, in capitalist society, use values are also the material depositories of exchange value. Exchange value, unlike use value, is the particular constitutive substance of the commodity as a historically determined social relation. Use values are qualitative. Exchange value appears first of all as a purely quantitative relation between commodities. This quantitative relation is dependent upon the shared social substance of commodities, their status as coagulations of a certain quantity of abstract labor. And abstract labor is simply commodity-producing labor. Just as exchange value as the specific, historically determined, abstract, quantitative, capitalist form of wealth stands in contradistinction to use value as the general, trans-historical attribute of being an object of human want within the commodity, so abstract labor is the specific, historically determined, abstract, quantitative, capitalist form of labor stands in contradistinction to concrete labor as the general, trans-historical, qualitative content of human productive activity within the social productive activity which constitutes the commodity. Here, we should also note that the question of whether exchange value is created in production or exchange has no meaning. The value relation is the structuring principle and constitutive substance of the total process of production for exchange, which makes up capitalist society as a whole. Now, considering that commodities by definition only exist in their exchange relation to one another, we will proceed to Marx's elucidation of the forms of this relation. The elucidation of these forms allows us to understand the logic of the money relation. We begin with the simplest form of this relation, what Marx calls the elementary or accidental form. This is simply X commodity A equals Y commodity B, or put concretely, 20 yards of linen equal or are worth 1 coat. In this equation, the linen expresses its value in the coat and the coat serves as the material within which the linen's value is expressed. When any commodity occupies, like the coat in relation to the linen, the equivalent position, it appears as the form of value. It is the material in which the value of the other commodity is expressed. Any exchange relation between two commodities is a polarity in which one serves to express the exchange value contained in the other. The one which expresses is said to be in the equivalent form. The one which is expressed is said to be in the relative form. In the equivalent form, use value becomes merely the form of manifestation of its opposite, value, i.e., exchange value. By extension, in the equivalent form, concrete labor is only the form of manifestation of the abstract labor, which constitutes exchange value. Therefore, in this elementary form of value, the internal opposition within the commodity between use value and exchange value appears as the relation between two commodities in which the exchange value of the one is expressed in the form of the other. This elementary form is also the initial form within which the product of labor appears historically as a commodity. This form is easily extended indefinitely. Ergo, from X commodity A equals Y commodity B to X commodity A equals Y commodity C, and so on, in an unlimited series of relations between commodities. At this point, every other commodity now serves to mirror the value of commodity A, here indicated as linen. When the linen is exchanged for many other commodities, it follows that the various owners of the latter are exchanging them for linen, that is, commodity A. Ergo, 1 coat for 20 yards of linen, 10 pounds of tea for 20 yards of linen, 40 pounds of coffee for 20 yards of linen, and so on. At this point, all commodities now express their value in a single commodity, which takes up the role of a general equivalent within which the exchange value of all other commodities finds expression. This commodity now becomes the money commodity by virtue of its monopoly of this function. In Marx's time, this function was filled directly by gold. In a more recent period, through a further process of abstraction, it is directly filled by a mere representation of the general equivalent function, without altering the essence of the relationship. Here, we should, with Marx, pause to reiterate, as we did in the answers to the questions posed last session, that the commodity is a thing which conceals within itself the social relations established between people in the process of production. It is not an isolated physical object, but a cellular component of a historically determined social totality. In each commodity is at one and the same time the precondition and the result of this totality, of which it forms the basic structuring principle or elementary building block. What the dominance of the commodity expresses is the transition from a class society in which the appropriation of the surplus from the immediate producers is carried out through personal relations of dominance and subordination, to one in which this appropriation is carried out through an impersonal exchange of equivalents between free and equal individuals. In that sense, the wage relation and the entire political and ideological structure of capitalist society is implicit within the commodity relation. The relation between commodities presupposes the relation between commodity owners. In order to exchange commodities, these commodity owners must recognize one another as individuals related to one another by the act of exchange, the free, consensual exchange of equivalence. This economic relation takes judicial form as the contract. It is this relation which constitutes the economic basis of the bourgeois ideology of freedom and equality. As Marx puts it, it is a very Eden of the innate rights of man. The expression of the value of the commodity in money form is its price. The possibility of quantitative incongruity between the price of a commodity and the magnitude of its value is given by the price form itself. Furthermore, in some cases, the price form does not express value at all, in which case the price is simply imaginary. The simple circulation of commodities takes the form of the circuit commodity, money, commodity, or CMC, the transformation of commodities into money and the change of the money back again into commodities, selling in order to buy. Alongside of this form, we find the circuit money, commodity, money, MCM, the transformation of money into commodities and their transformation again into money, buying in order to sell. This is the circuit of capital, of exchange value seeking to increase itself. The increment of value at the end of the circuit over the quantity present at the beginning is termed surplus value. The movement of this circuit is capital as a process. Simple circulation, CMC, is merely a means for the satisfaction of wants outside of the process of circulation. The circulation of money as capital, on the other hand, is the self-expansion of exchange value as an end in itself, without any inherent limit. The conscious representative of this process is the capitalist. In order for exchange value to produce surplus value, it is necessary to purchase on the market a commodity whose consumption itself is productive of value. This commodity is labor power or labor capacity. That is to say, the aggregate of the mental and physical capacities existing in a human being whenever he or she produces a use value of any description. The owner of labor power, a free individual in the marketplace, encounters the capitalist, another free individual in the marketplace, and freely chooses to sell this labor power to him or her for a definite and limited time. The value of labor power is determined, like the value of any commodity, by the amount of labor required to produce it. That is to say, the value of labor power is determined by the amount of labor required to reproduce it. There is no such thing as unpaid reproductive labor. The capitalist pays in full for the reproduction of our labor power through the wage. We may not like the conditions under which the level of this payment compels us to reproduce our labor power. It may shorten our life expectancy or make us sick, but that is not on account of any theft. It is to the contrary, the consequence of a free and equal exchange, which on the basis of our own separation from the means of production, we voluntarily choose to enter. It is to the critique of the inhumanity and unreason of the norm of free and equal exchange itself that Marxism is dedicated. The critique of deviations from this norm, as important as it is to expose the many ways in which even the most fully developed bourgeois society fails to live up to its own standards, is powerless to rectify the injustice constituted by these standards themselves. and it is the aspiration to go beyond the limits of these standards which differentiates communists from bourgeois Democrats. With that, I will now present to you the questions for meeting, which we have summarized, and why is it necessary? 2, what is the formula of simple commodity circulation? And why is it contradictory? 3, what is the formula of capital, and how does it differ from simple circulation? 4, what is the difference between labor and labor power? 5, what is surplus value? 6, what does it mean to say that the so-called necessary wants of the worker are the product of, quote, historical development?